Hello again, and during this video we're going to learn how to sketch in freehand 3D solid shapes in isometric and in oblique. On the left hand side we're going to be drawing solid shapes in oblique, and on the right hand side we're going to be drawing solid shapes in isometric. Now let's start with the cube. And first, since I'm going to be drawing an oblique cube, I'm going to first draw the baseline. Now it's important that when sketching that you do not use your wrist, but your entire hand when drawing straight lines. Now let's draw the vertical lines of the first face. And it's important that up till this stage, you will only use construction lines, so use only light lines. We will be darkening all our lines at the end. Now while sketching, it's okay to have more than one line, however it's much more ideal to have a single line. So you would know at the end which line you must darken. Now it's time to draw the 45-degree construction lines. When drawing angles, what I find useful is that first I draw a perpendicular angle and then find the mid-angle, obviously with your eye. Now once again, use your arm to draw the angled lines. When drawing vertical lines, it's much more ideal to start from the top and then drag to the bottom. The same goes for the horizontal lines. Do you see here? I'm like connecting the two lines together to form one single line. What I also find handy when sketching is when drawing a line, I would first draw a dotted line or a broken line and then connect it. So you could try that as well. Now here I'm darkening the outlines. Once again, when darkening your outlines, try your best to draw one single continuous line. Try to avoid having spiked lines or more than one line when darkening the outlines. It is okay to have it in your construction lines. However, in your outlines, it's important that you only have one single line visible. Now let's move on to the isometric cube. Now, same as we do when using rulers, I'm going to start with the lowest corner of this solid shape. So first I draw a perpendicular angle, and then from this angle I try to find which angle would suit the 30-degree one the best. And remember that all angled lines in an isometric view are at 30 degrees. So here I'm just finding the lines first. Let's check with our set square, just in case. Especially when you're still a beginner, it's always ideal to check before you continue to draw your lines. So here I was a bit off, so I'm going to start all over again. So once again, let's start with our baseline and then the vertical line of the lowest corner. And now let's find, so first I create a 45-degree angle, and then from that I try to find the 30. Do the same on the other side. Once again, when drawing lines, start from the top and then drag towards you. Let's mark where the other vertical lines are going to be. And let's extend these lines. It's okay to have more than one line at this stage because we're roughly sketching at this point. If you're struggling to make a straight line, you could do the same thing that I did here. Draw a broken line and then connect it. Now let's mark the height of these lines, where the line will end. Now as you're noticing here, I'm first drawing a short line on one side and another short line on the other side, and then I'm connecting it. Now let's draw the final two lines. Now since this is a cube, I'm first going to extend the mid vertical line and then draw the final two lines parallel with the other lines that I've previously drawn. Now let's darken the outlines once again. For your sketch, your final sketch to look neat, it's important to have one continuous line. Now keep in mind that since this is freehand, your lines are not going to be as straight. However, with practice, you will get to your final goals. Also, do not expect that you're going to do it immediately on the first try. You have to keep on trying in order to get closer once again to your final goals. Now let's move on to the cuboid. The cuboid uses the same method as the square while drawing. Now obviously, when drawing a cuboid, you're going to have different heights. So first you start with the baseline and then with the vertical lines. Once again, start from the top and then drag the line towards you. Now here I'm finding the best height and then draw the line parallel to my baseline. And now let's continue by drawing the 45-degree construction lines. Now if you struggle in finding the 45-degree angle, it's always useful to first draw a 90-degree angle, a perpendicular angle, and then find the 45-degree from there with your eyes, obviously, because this is freehand. Now let's erase the exaggerated extended lines. And now let's darken the outline. Once again, the outline has to be one continuous dark line. You don't have to press too much because if you make a mistake, you won't be able to erase it. So if you're struggling in drawing a continuous dark line, then I suggest in building your line little by little, always following the same line. And if you have two lines like I have here, make sure to erase it and redraw the same line. Now let's move on to the isometric cuboid. First mark where your lowest corner is going to be, and then from those 90-degree angles you're going to find the 30-degree lines. Once again, to draw straight lines, long straight lines, you have to use your entire arm. Mark the height of your lines and then draw the same line parallel with your baseline. Now to locate where the other top lines are going to be, I'm going to continue in drawing the base for my cuboid. So first I finish the base, make sure that those lines are parallel with the other lines opposite to them, then mark down the height, and then continue to draw the upper lines that are going to be visible at the end. Now let's start darkening our lines. Now erase some extended lines, however do not erase them completely as they are part of your working, they're part of your sketch work. Now in this part of the video we're going to be sketching an oblique prism and an isometric prism. Now let's start with the oblique prism. First, as always, start with your baseline. Then I'm going to mark the distance of my line, and since I'm going to be drawing a triangular prism, I'm going to find the midpoint of that baseline and then extend the line upwards. Now join the apex point with the other 2 points on your baseline. Now to draw your 45-degree construction line, first start with a perpendicular angle and then project your 45-degree line from there. Make sure to use your entire arm when drawing the extended line. Now mark the distance of how long your extruded shape is going to be. Make sure to mark the equal distance on the other side and then connect them. Make sure that those 2 lines are parallel. Now it's time to darken the outlines. Now let's move on to the isometric prism. Once again, I'm going to be drawing a triangular prism. So first start with your lowest corner And from that 90-degree angle, you're going to find your 30-degree line. Now let's mark down the lengths of these two lines right here. Find the midpoint to draw your triangle and then mark the height. Join the apex with the other two corners. Now draw the extended line. Make sure it's parallel with the other line. And then join it from there. And now let's darken the outlines. Now we are going to move on to drawing an oblique and isometric sketch of a pyramid, a square-based pyramid. And let's start by drawing our square-based pyramid by drawing the pyramid's base in oblique. So here first we have our square, then let's find the center, and from that center you're going to extend a line upwards, then mark your height, and then from the pyramid's apex, you're going to connect it to the other corners of your base. Make sure to use your entire arm to create straight lines. Otherwise, your lines will end up looking curved. Now let's darken the outlines. Now here I'm going to add some hidden lines to my sketch to show to the viewer how the pyramid is going to look like from the back. Make sure that underneath your hidden line you have your construction line visible, otherwise your lines will not be straight since you're continuously drawing a broken line. Also, when drawing a hidden line, make sure that the gaps between each line are somewhat equal to make your sketch look much more neater. Now let's move on to draw the isometric square-based pyramid. And once again, just like we did with the other shapes, let's start by drawing the lowest corner. And I draw the lowest corner by first drawing a 90-degree angle. And from it, I'll find the other 30-degree lines. Then you're going to mark down the lengths of these two lines. And when you do that, you're going to continue to draw the other lines of the base, which are going to be behind the view that we are seeing. Now let's cross the corners to find the center of our base, of our square base. There we have the center right there. And now let's extend that line to create the height or the apex, to find the apex of our pyramid. So let's make it this high. Okay, now from that apex, connect that apex to the other corners of your pyramid. Now once again, I'm going to darken the outlines of my pyramid. And here, just like we did on the oblique square-based pyramid, we're going to be drawing the hidden lines. So we'll give the viewer information on how the pyramid is going to look like at the back. Now let's continue with the cylinder. And first I'm going to be drawing the oblique cylinder. To start my oblique cylinder, I'm first going to draw the face of a square, of a regular square. Then you're going to extend your corners by drawing 45-degree construction lines. And then draw the square at the back. Here I'm also drawing the lines that I'm not going to be seeing, in order to help me to draw this square at the back. So until now we have drawn a square prism. However, inside these squares I have to draw my circles. So to help me to draw my circles, I'm going to cross the two squares by drawing a cross like this. Please make sure that your cross is at the center of your square. Now I'm going to draw the curves quarter by quarter. And you do this by using your wrist to draw curved lines. Now you're going to do the same thing at the back. Once again, use your wrist to draw the curves, the curved quarters. After you draw each circle, make sure to fix up any details later. Now to draw the 45-degree projection lines, you're going to draw a tangent which touches the outermost lines or the outermost edges of your two circles. Once again, let's do the same on the other side. And then you could start darkening your outlines. Then you're going to draw the hidden lines, which are going to give us information on how this cylinder is going to look like at the back. Now let's draw the isometric cylinder now. Now your first circular face is going to be on this side. Once again, just like we did with the oblique cylinder, first I'm going to be drawing a square prism. And then I'm going to be using this square prism as a guide to draw my cylinder. Now let's draw the square face on this side of the isometric view. And then let's draw the other rectangular face on the other side. Mark the length. And once again you have to draw both faces. And you're going to draw also what's going to be on behind. So let's draw the other lines that we're not going to be seeing. Then to assist me in my drawing while drawing the isometric circles, I'm going to first connect the opposite corners by forming a cross at the center. Then I'll cross the square once again by finding the midpoint of each line. And then I'm going to draw my curves. Make sure that your curves, your quadrants, will end at the midpoint of each line. Fix up any details and then do the same on the other one. So first cross out your square from the midlines and then cross it again from the corners. Draw your first quarter. And then the second, once again, always use your wrist to draw curves. Now once again, to draw the 45-degree construction lines, you're going to connect the outermost edges of your two circles by drawing a tangent. Then you're going to darken your outlines and then draw the hidden line at the back. Now let's move on to drawing an oblique and isometric cone. Once again, we're going to start with the oblique cone. Now to start, rather than immediately drawing an oblique circle, I'm going to first start by drawing an oblique square base. And from this square base, later, I will draw my circular base. Now that's our square base. Now what we need to do is to create lines similar to those that we've done on the cylinder. So let's find the midpoint of each line and then create a cross. Now create a cross by connecting the corners opposite to each other. Now the lines are going to be helpful for us to visualize and while drawing our oblique circle. Now let's use the first point as a guide over there, and then by using our wrist we're going to draw the first quarter of this oblique circle. For curved lines, always use your wrist. Do the same with the others, the longer curves of our oblique circle. Then let's close it off by drawing the last quarter. Also, a circle such as this one is also referred to as an ellipse. Now let's draw the height of our cone. First, draw a perpendicular line from the center that we have found when we were crossing those lines. And then, from the apex of your cone, join the apex to the outermost edges of your oblique circle. Do the same on the other side. Connect the apex with the outermost edge of the circle. Now let's darken the outlines. Now, when rubbing off lines, do not rub off the lines completely, as I still want them to be visible. Here I am just lighting up the lines so they won't appear as dark in the final sketch. Now let's draw the hidden lines to show how the cone is going to appear from behind. Now let's move on to the isometric cone. Now, same as we did with the oblique, first I'm going to draw a square base for my cone. Then from that square, I will be able to draw my circle. Now let's draw the guidelines by finding the midpoint of each line and by connecting the corners opposite to each other. And by creating that cross, we would be finding the midpoint of our square. So later we would be able to find or to draw our apex. Now let's draw the circular base quarter by quarter. Now let's find the apex. Let's make it that high. And once again, from the apex, you're going to connect your apex and then create a tangent which touches the outermost edge of your circular base. Now here I'm lighting a bit my lines by rubbing a bit off. And now I'm going to darken the outlines of my cone. Now make sure that when darkening, your line is not feathered. Always make sure that your line is one continuous line. You could build a line little by little as I'm doing here, but always make sure that you would continue where you left off and not start your lines from a new point. Now let's continue by drawing our hidden line and then we'll finish. And that is it for this video. That's how to sketch some basic solid shapes. Now you could take the skills that you have learned from this video and draw some compound solid shapes.